The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Alrighty, here I want to welcome everybody to our What's New webinar. We're going to get started in just about another minute. I'll wait till everyone joins on. We'll start at the very top of the hour. For those that are here a little early, we do have a chat box available for asking any questions. Can we just get a confirmation that you guys can hear me and see my screen so we can get started on time? Excellent. So it looks like we have a few more joining on the top of the hour, so I'll get started just with a quick introduction. My name is Bradley Solon. I'm a technical services engineer here at Onshape. For today's webinar, we're going to go over what's new in our most recent update, which was back in June 15th. So if anyone's counting the days, you can expect another update to be coming out very, very shortly. With the July 4th holiday, we were kind of a week behind based on our 3-week scheduling here. But I really just want to take the time today to go into more detail about what was in our most recent release back in June, and see if there's anything else we can dive into that wasn't in our forum post or our short videos that I recorded for you guys. I don't expect this to take more than, say, a half an hour. So this would be a nice short one. We'll go into the details of what was recently pushed out there, and then hopefully by the end of this you can get a nice surprise with another release along the road as well. So to start with, let's just walk through some of the improvements on the CAD side, some new professional features that were released, as well as some enterprise features, and then we'll dive into each one with an Onshape. I think the most popular one that came out was our ability to work in the sheet metal flat pattern. As everyone knows, with Onshape sheet metal, you can see both your bent and flat state side by side. Well, now you can actually work in that flat state. I think the biggest benefit of this is being able to cut across bends in certain ways that you might not have been able to working in that flat or in that bent environment. Along with this, we also are now able to include sketches when you actually export your flat pattern as DXF DWG files. So that'll be very useful when you get to your laser machine or engraving machine and need to either cut in a certain name or serial number instead of cutting all the way through. Beyond that, we'll definitely be showing off some of the tessellation settings, which I found to be very useful within Onshape. I'm going to show you a cool workflow to actually configure the ability to have a high resolution model and a low resolution model, whether you're trying to grab a screenshot along the way or just work very quickly and not have any performance hits. And then I think the final main thing on the CAD improvements is going to be the mating workflow we've introduced. There's now a nice little head-up display toolbar that'll appear next to your mouse cursor so you can quickly go through multiple mates at once, and I'll show off the nuances there as well. And then the last bit is really just some organizational tools on the CAD side in terms of being able to access the tab manager and do more with it, and we'll see the details. With the professional Onshape account, this is people that have the release workflow available. So Onshape has the free, standard, professional, and enterprise. For the professional Onshape users out there, we have a few release workflow improvements along drawing properties on release, being able to auto-obsolete previous revisions, and even add teams as a whole as approvers. In the past, it was just individuals. Now you can add multiple people at once here. And then last but not least, there's a minor update to the enterprise features. Just the project roles, you can add teams as well, and there's some improved selections, even across the entire dialog of Onshape when you're getting teams involved and typing in their names or trying to find them. So let's actually jump into Onshape itself. and go through some of these main feature sets as we're pushing forward here. So to start off with, I think you can always, in your Onshape environment, take a look at what's new through the question mark icon in the top right of your screen. So this is where you can access things like our help menu, our learning center, go to our forums and do a system check. But we also have a dedicated section to what's new. So when you select this, it'll send you to our what's new forum post. And we'll actually see here that the last one was that June 15th. And again, short video clips and descriptions of everything I'm going to cover here today. Now, going back to the Onshape model, the first one definitely is the being able to work in the flat pattern of a sheet metal component. So I made more of a complex polygon, 3D shape here. When we open up our flat pattern view, we'll be able to see a few things right away about it. I always like Onshape's, simultaneous view here, so I can get a nice exact flat pattern right away when I first create my sheet metal part, instead of having to do a lot of flipping back and forth between the design. But now as well here, I have some flat pattern grilled pieces I want to cut. And as I highlight the components I'm focused on, I'll see they're centered around the back side of this component. So I want a nice, symmetric, even, say, grill cut across this entire board. And I can actually come in here, click on any face in the flat pattern, and do my same sketching workflow. I can hit the Shift S hotkey, or even come in and actually use our toolbar dialog to come in here and actually create a sketch on these main components. So I think what I want to do is get a nice top view. We'll rotate it a little bit. And I'm not going to dimension things too much, but I'm going to get a nice 3-point arc on my design. And this is something that would probably be very difficult for me to try to attempt if I was just working in the bench shape. And as we know with other CAD systems, I have to first do an action to unfold my components, do an action then to actually go and work on that flat view, then perform my feature and then refold everything. Of course, with Onshape now, it's just back and forth very quickly and easily across the board here. So I've got some nice arcs in here that I may want to perform a slot feature along. I'll just quickly select each one, convert them to construction lines, and then I'll hit my S key to come in, and I did not add my slot feature. That's okay. We'll grab it here from our main selection list and get them thrown in here. Now I'll just hit Shift E to go on my extrude command. You'll notice when I am extruding or performing a feature in the flat view, the dialog will be a little different from if I'm working in that 3D space. So there is a little bit of, it's just removing or adding material to a sheet metal piece. I can also add, say, components as a flange or a tab here, instead of having to explicitly use the sheet metal tab tool in our toolbar on the top here. So now we can see, the feature that I've created come across the entire bent and flat state of my model. If I do close the flat pattern, I will see that when I try to view sketch 3, I'm actually not going to see it in the 3D space. So that's a good indicator that this is actually being performed in the flat view of the sheet metal part. So if I actually double click to edit that sketch, it will auto open the sheet metal panel for me to then go and see the sketch and make any modifications that I want. Now the second side of our improvements to sheet metal, again, is that ability to actually, add just sketches to the sheet metal face. So here I put a model number on this component. I could have this configured or add a variable in here to drive this. When I right click and export out this flat pattern now, I can choose to include all visible sketches. So I can hide and show the sketches that I want. Maybe I actually don't want this one included. That's actually funny here, sketch 4. So now I can come and export, and that actually wouldn't carry through because it's no longer visible in my view. So I'll reveal it, right click, come and export it, and I'll actually store this in a new tab so we can take a quick look at what this will look like for us. And we'll now see that sketch piece come into play. Depending on what manufacturing tools you have, you can then set that as a new layer for, say, just etching instead of cutting all the way through a material in your cut sheet. Now, this is probably my favorite update to Onshape and I have created a drastic example, but there are probably times when people have gone into Onshape to try to edit some specific detailed components or look at larger parts and not always see the best looking model. Based on performance, Onshape would always auto tessellate the model information. So you might end up seeing something blocky like this instead of a complete circle. Now, of course, this is just visual. When you are actually modeling and doing CAD, Onshape does recognize this mathematically as a perfect circle. As when I click on this edge, I'm getting the diameter dimension. But just to help speed up performance, you may have hit scenarios where this was the case. Now across the Part Studio and Assembly space, you can actually come into your parts. So I'm going to select all of them with a Shift Select and actually edit the appearance of them. At the very bottom of our appearance now, we have the ability to manually force a tessellation quality to the design. Now, since this is under the appearance section, this is a part property of each of these components that I'm modifying. So if you're thinking ahead a little bit, what you can actually do now is actually configure the tessellation quality to this part property as well. So what's pretty interesting here, even though this might look nice, if I zoom in, I might still see some errors. This one actually looks pretty good for us now. But I ended up creating a configuration that's just a checkbox of if I want this to be in a rendered view or not. So if I come over to my configuration properties, I can see each of the parts. I've added a tessellation quality configuration property that I want it to be on coarse or fine. So I'll switch that back to coarse actually. So we can see that drastic improvement between the parts. So right now I'm not in my rendered mode. As I see in the top left of my Part Studio, maybe I'm working in a very, very large assembly or a Part Studio design and want to be able to make some quick edits without being slowed down. But then maybe either I want to grab a screenshot of this tire or drill down into some more specific details within the hub itself. And so I want a nice, cleaner, more accurate view so I can check that render box. And this is the caveat you'll notice. You saw that spinny wheel there for a little bit, so this does have the potential to impact the performance of your model depending on the complexity and the smaller level of details like the treading or any specific engravings you might have. So, it really is a decision you're going to make, whether you want to sacrifice performance per se to get a better view of the model. Again, a good use case is if you do want to grab a screenshot or a rendering of the design. And this does and will carry over into the assembly space as well. So if I now come into this assembly tab on the right, I can come in and actually insert that tessellation Part Studio of the tire that I was looking at. And of course, since I did set a configuration, I can choose whether I want this rendered or not. So that choice is entirely mine. I can come and actually insert those components. And then if I did still have a lower quality view of my model, I still saw some blocks, I can actually right click on all of my components. I can always do a Shift Select of everything to grab all of them at once and choose to use the best tessellation quality that's available. So in this case, since I did have some parts in the Part Studio set to ultra fine or very fine, that's what it'll probably jump up to. And then we also do give you a little notification warning that, hey, we're forcing the highest tessellation quality. So again, just a reminder, you may have a negative impact on performance. Excellent. Moving on, when it comes to finishing your part design, starting to put things into an assembly view here. Oh, I'm sorry. Is my audio still good or is the voice still muffled? How is that? Is that better? I apologize for that. I was looking at the chat box and at the questions box, so I missed that. Thank you for grabbing my attention on that one. So the next step here is getting into the mating side of things and our mating head-up display toolbar that appears. At least for me personally, as I'm working with an Onshape, I like to do all of my mates all at once, whether it's on a sub-assembly level or on the top level assembly side of things. And in the past, when I had to perform a make command, I have to come in here. I want to add a fasten mate to these two parts. Click the checkbox, or my mouse is over here editing the parts. I want to go and flip around the directions. You have to remember the hotkeys to flip the primary secondary axes, or move my mouse all the way back over to make those changes, or even change the mate type if I wanted to, say, have this be a revolute mate. Now you'll notice very quickly that as I start to apply mates to my two components, as soon as I set two mate connectors in the design here. So let's grab the inside of my cylinder. A mating head-up display toolbar will appear right next to my mouse cursor on that second click. So I'm not traveling all the way back over to this main dialog. So I can very quickly come in here, change the mate type if I want to, take a look and inspect the model, make sure it's exactly how I envision it. That looks about right. And then choose to actually complete this and start a new mate dialog. So instead of having to hit Shift to Enter, which will still work as a hotkey to both complete this action and open up the same mate dialog, I now have a nice, quick, easy checkbox that'll do the same thing. So I can very, very quickly now start to come in and move through in a mating structure to my design and start to add all these components together. So again, just some nice quick workflow improvements. I can choose then to hit the green checkbox of the main mate dialog to complete this command. If I'm still within it, let's just try to do something dumb to get that to reappear. I can always exit out at the end to also complete that action. And then we'll see now everything is fully mated around, fully controlled here to my design. Very, very quickly, just an attempt to improve the workflow for people. This was a big update based on feedback we received from customers. Again, don't ever hesitate to actually come in and give us feedback through the feedback dialog in Onshape. If you see improvements to this, I can already envision a few things we want to add is in that toolbar, the ability to also change limits right there as well. So we have some big things in mind for this. This is the first steps of what we want to do, and let us know what you think, whether you're commenting the forum post or again filling out that feedback tool to let us know. Now, at the bottom of my screen, I do have a lot of tabs. I have a few apps here, a few drawings, a few assemblies and part studios, and I want to be able to organize them. The tab manager has always been there in Onshape, but we did make a few improvements to help navigate through it, especially when people get into more complex project structures. So a few things of major note here. Starting from top to bottom of the tab manager, the search bar has always been there, but we have made some improvements to our filtering commands and options. So you'll only see the icons of the types of tabs that are currently within your document. So right now, I have a part studio, assemblies, drawings, and some DWG files as well. So I can choose to filter and show however many of these combinations as I want. So right now I'm just showing a drawing and part studios that are available. I can clear everything. And whether I'm filtering or not, I can also then choose to sort through each of my tabs, whether by name or by type. Again, there was some limitations here in the past, but now we're giving some more visibility and control over this. We also now have the ability to make selections to your tabs. And since I'm in the current tab order, I can also adjust the tab order as a whole. So by moving this around, if you look at the bottom of my Onshape toolbar here, or my Onshape tabs, you'll also see that the order changed here as well. And we can do even more with these components now too. So whether I have an assembly and a part studio selected by control clicking, I can now move these to a new document, change the properties of both of these components at once, very quickly be able to get these up and running. Or just right-clicking an empty space in my tab manager will give me our create options that we're used to finding from the plus sign in the bottom left. So again, we're just trying to help reduce mouse travel. I tend to keep this open a lot when I'm working just for jumping around a project. So instead of having to move all the way down to the bottom to say add a new part studio, a new application, or import data, we'll now see these options here available under the create option as well. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything on this. Yep, that sounds about right. Perfect. And then if I import something new here, so let's actually bring in something from today. Let's bring in this 3D mouse image. We'll see under the tab manager that new image icon becomes available for me to filter by. Again, just showing that real-time appearance of our sorting actions under the tab manager filter. Now, getting more into the Onshape professional tier, getting into the release management side of things for those that are professional users and haven't enabled their release workflow in Onshape, you can go over to your company settings under the release management option and switch from manual to our default workflow. So this allows us to do things like automatically create part numbers, control revision access, and a few things that are now available for this release process. I think the first one, since we're here, is actually the ability to automatically obsolete any previous revision. So this is moving forward if you are using the release workflow process and you do release a part that was already previously released. So let's say you're under your revision B now. When you do so, that will automatically obsolete revision A. So if you are using that revision in other assemblies for manufacturing, you will get that notification and be prompted to use the most recently released component, which is now Rev B. On the drawing sides of things, we'll also see some new updates to the properties and metadata to this design. So if I come over to this component, I do want to push a release of this part we've created. Right now, there are no releases made. I have gone ahead and actually created a drawing of this. So we'll take a look at a few things. I did check the box to auto watermark any of my parts that weren't released, so everyone knows this is not an official drawing yet. It's still in progress. And I've added a few fields here. So we have made a change to the default title box inside of Onshape. There is now an approved by date for when a release is actually pushed. This will autofill with the user that made that approval happen. As before, there was also note fields for things like the status or state of a part. And again, I just put the approved by date here as well to make it a little bit larger. You can access these fields by adding a new note somewhere, whether in the title block space or in your drawing. And you're going to look under the drawing properties to insert. So scrolling down towards the bottom, those are now two available options as we push forward. So I'm kind of in the middle of setting up a release for this part, so we'll take a look at it. If we come over into my release dialog I have open, we'll see I've automatically applied the part numbers for my drawing and the part I've designed, and also named my release. So I gave myself the minimal permissions needed to perform a release. I even allowed myself to actually approve it. That is a possibility. And we'll see here, along with that approval process, I can now start looking for teams and actually add them as an approver as well. In the past, I could only add individuals. So I could have only searched Brad and then, Katie and then Neil. Now I can actually create an approvers team if I want, and then just go and throw them in here on the professional level. Again, on the enterprise, as we'll see in a second, you can also do this through the project roles. So I'll go and release this part now. Nothing significant happens on the Part Studio level. We do see our tag now. I might not have fully done it because I had that open for a while, so it might have timed out on me. So go back to the drawing really quickly. I want to release the drawing. Yeah, I didn't fully do it. That is okay. Beautiful. We'll now see that the drawing was released. If I go to this release point in time, so this is exactly what's been released now, I'll notice that data is now filled in. So again, it's not the current editable open space. The current editable open space is still fluid, is still changing. I don't want people to reference that, so it still has that watermark of in progress. But now these new releases that I just made have that information filled out, have the watermark missing. And if we zoom into the title block, that also automatically filled in for me, showing I drew this today, I released this today. If I do perform another release, this will also let's say tomorrow, this will then update. Maybe it's a different person that pushes the release. So we'll see that here. This is only in those release states, however. Going back to main, we'll still see this one as in progress because it hasn't gone through a release workflow process just yet. Are there any questions along this? Anything I've showed off so far? All right, great. The last bit I want to show off here is just that last section under our Onshape Enterprise Improvements. So I'm currently signed in as a user that can use Enterprise. So when I switch over to that Enterprise domain, I'll have to quickly sign back in, I believe. Okay, good. Pop me back over. If I want to go and actually create a new project or document, you'll also see this in the sharing dialog and the release dialog, which I showed. When I go and want to add somebody now, at least for a team in the share dialog, I can start to type in a team name and it'll automatically filter out based on the letter matching that I have. It used to be just a drop down. I had to go and click and find. Now I can just start typing and have that kind of autofill available. So I can type managers is being highlighted. Using my arrow key, I can move down the highlight to manufacturer and then hit tab to actually add that in. So again, just adding some of those more keyboard workflow functionality to all of our dialogues across the Onshape user base. And then one final thing that wasn't completely mentioned or wasn't shown off completely in our update, we did make a big improvement to the Onshape API Explorer. So if you are a developer, if you are working on an app for Onshape, go and take a look at our API Explorer again. You can access that by first registering through our dev portal, and then you'll be able to add the API Explorer through the App Store. So in any document, you can open it up. We've significantly improved the user interface, the performance and time it takes to navigate through that. And we've also required the need for API keys for any calls within that Explorer, just for some nice added security across the board here. But with that, I have wrapped up a bit early, a few minutes early here. In terms of the latest release that we pushed, I want to open this up for any Q&A or questions that people might have from what I've showed off today. Excellent. So keep in mind, it has been about 4 weeks since we pushed a release. We like to push things every 3 weeks, but we had a holiday week come up here. So you can expect another one to come out hopefully shortly. I don't want to give too much specifics there, but we want to always use your feedback, your input to improve the product. So just let us know what you think. Either reach out to us through the application or through email. We're always very responsive in that respect. But with that, if no one has anything else, I'd like to say a big thank you for attending today. Nice, short, sweet one right before lunch, at least on the East Coast. And we'll see you next time.